Welcome back to another episode of the MASSP podcast. My name is Ryan Casey, and today we are joined for one final time this school year with MHSAA Executive Director Mark Ewell, who talks about the upcoming spring season. We discuss some interesting data regarding multi-sport athletes, challenges related to senior athletes in the spring, and a new AD mentoring and coaching program that's been started. So let's check it out. So enjoy your ride to or from school, your run on the treadmill, or however you like to listen, because another MASSP podcast episode starts now. All right. Well, good morning, Mark. Thanks again for joining us on the MASSP podcast. We've been kind of having this ongoing conversation all year long as one sports season ends and the next one gets started. So it seems like you've had a pretty successful winter season as a lot of those sports are starting to wind down. And I feel like I can feel the excitement in the air from all the ADs across the state as they're starting to see this yellow orb thing in the sky outside of their office right now. But I'm assuming everyone's getting excited for the next season.
They are. It's funny. Usually, we often talk about the four longest months of the year are the 4 months of the winter season. And with the weather not being quite as harsh this year, and that goes everywhere from, our schools in Monroe to New Buffalo, all the way up to Copper Country in the UP. Winter has been very manageable this year in terms of weather, which I think has really helped everybody. I think all of us, though, that have been in school business long enough, we hope that we don't end up paying for this in March and April. But no, really successful. Our, championships that have already concluded went really, really well. We even somehow figured out a way to get our alpine skiing season done. Thank goodness it was getting cold enough at night for our ski hills that could make snow with their snow machines at night, and then we're able to keep it on the hill during the day. So yes, we even got ski to the finish line here and another 2.5 weeks to go. So very successful winter.
Excellent. So let's talk spring and up next. And again, I'll rattle off the list. Correct me if I get any of these wrong. For spring season, we should have baseball and softball, lacrosse, track and field, girls soccer, and boys golf. And then we have some specific sports related to kind of Lower Peninsula, Upper Peninsula. So I think we have for the UP, we have boys tennis and girls golf as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, both the golfs and the UP play during the spring.
Okay.
Just because that fall weather window is so short. But yeah, so we spring is very, very busy. Lots of activities, and we've also got the most number of sports in the UP that have their own spring championships. So, for example, Kingsford Forever has hosted the UP track final meet, which is a huge deal up there. And then, of course, tennis and golf with their own championships. So, yeah, looking forward to the calendar turning here shortly, and spring is full speed ahead.
And is that for the different sports, for sometimes the UP versus Lower Peninsula, is that really just because of the seasons and the weather and the climate changes in different parts of the state?
So actually, the UP, so the MHSAA, we're 99 years old. We'll celebrate our 100th year next year. Awesome. And actually, the UP Athletic Committee, it goes back just before World War II. Wow. So it was in the mid 1930s. Is we had the first meeting of the UP Athletic Committee, and they met. Really, it was all about basketball back then. It was how we were going to conduct, and of course, at that time, it was only the boys basketball tournament and what that would mean for the UP schools. Also know that this was back before a bridge existed. The Mackinac Bridge was put in place during the 1950s. But a long history, and essentially what our UP schools have done over time is they've decided what sports does it make sense for us to compete on a statewide basis, and then what other sports does it just make sense for us to have our own Upper Peninsula championships. And, the last one that got added to that mix was wrestling. Up until about 17 years ago, our UP schools had their own wrestling tournament in the UP. And I think, those kids want to be able to compete, want to be able to show what they can do. So they have come downstate here for the last almost 2 decades and competed in that. But the UP Athletic Committee, again, they kind of identify, here are the sports we want to just finish with the UP. And certainly weather is a part of that. I think, just the number of schools, the number of kids has always been a part of that. Yep. And we really just take those on kind of a sport by sport basis.
Awesome. Well, thank you for explaining that. You mentioned, the spring season is very busy. It seems like there's at any time, a home school can be hosting 3 or 4 different events. I, as a former administrator, I always enjoyed it because we got to be outside finally from being, cooped up in a gym for most of the winter, as you mentioned. They start a little earlier, right? So things are usually getting started around 4 o'clock or 4:30. It seems like for most of the spring sports. But there is kind of a unique challenge that comes with spring sports. And I just wanted to get your kind of take on this. It's the only season that really extends beyond when our seniors are quote unquote finished with school or graduated. Especially, it seems like the trend is that seniors are kind of getting done earlier and earlier with their courses, and graduations are moved up earlier and earlier. So how do successful programs or schools engage seniors to remain committed to a sports season?
Really, really tough. Because as you said, Ryan, the trend right now is for earlier release. We still have the academic requirement that is in place even during the spring, but once seniors kind of reach those, final finish lines, the academic piece doesn't quite have as much meaning. It's really the challenge that a lot of schools have. How do you keep your seniors engaged for some of those end of the year things leading all the way up to the graduation ceremony? You hear the horror stories every year about, graduation might be on, I'll just pick June 1, for example, but, senior pranks or those kinds of things that happen in the last 2 weeks of May. Well, how does that now impact a kid's ability to walk in graduation and those things? And it does really take, I think, some skillful conversations with your senior athletes that, yep, you're not in the routine anymore of where you're in the building every day, during the last 3-4 weeks of our season, especially in those sports where there's a late push by a team in our tournament. What's funny is we have often gotten why don't spring sports end later? Given our weather, why don't we finish later on in June rather than, for example, the track season finals always being on the first Saturday in June? Well, I think the reason is we've just hit on it, that it's hard to keep those seniors kind of on the rails, so to speak, when they're no longer in our building during class. They've already met all of their academic requirements. Mentally, are they fully there? Or are they kind of moving on now already to the next chapter? And extending that by pushing our seasons back 2 or 3 weeks, I think would make right now what's a challenging task an almost impossible task. Yeah. So there's no, I think, easy answer for it. I think the programs that manage it best are the ones where coaches have very open conversations with their seniors. Yep. And say, look, this is a unique time for all of you. Here are still some basic expectations that we have on our team. We still need you to show leadership to our juniors and sophomores. So next year and in the coming years, those seniors kind of go out the right way too. And we really could use your help in kind of charting that path. But it is tricky. And I think every school community, it's a little bit different everywhere.
Absolutely. I was looking on the website the other day, and it looks like MHSAA released data from your multi-sport survey. So this was actually conducted, it would have been for last school year, the 22-23 school year. But it looks like over the last few years, there's been pretty consistent data that shows about 44% of our student athletes participate in more than one school sport. So how important is it that student athletes participate in more than one sport? And was there any other kind of interesting data from that survey that you think is worth sharing?
So I think the interesting dynamic is right now there's conversations about new and emerging sports. Should we sponsor, should we add water polo? What's the status of boys volleyball? Those are a couple of sport communities where we're hearing more and more interest. I think whenever you consider adding something new, you first got to look at what you're currently offering in that, that 44% number of multi-sport participation is very, very positive. Now, when you break that data down, you'll see that the higher percentages of multi-sport kids tend to be at our smaller schools. Because obviously our Division III and Division IV schools in a lot of sports, well, you need everybody. When you've got a high school of say 300 students, to be able to have enough numbers on all of your teams, you need more kids to come out, which interestingly enough, when you start talking about expansion in more sports, the schools that we hear the most concerns from are those smaller schools. Look, our current student population is really spread fairly thin right now to what we're currently offering, and it makes it really, really difficult then, with a small school to where if you add boys volleyball and that becomes a spring sport, well, what is the impact then on our current baseball team? What's the impact on our current track and field team? What exactly does that look like? What's the impact even on our golf team? So those are all things that you have to be very smart about. Our bigger schools, I think you tend to have more one sport athletes. For example, if I'm at a high school with 2,000 kids, it's awfully tough for me to be on the basketball team because, again, to kind of be one of the 12 out of 2,000 kids, well, there's probably got to be a real significant commitment in the off season.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the different challenges. And of course, at the end of the day, here we're trying to create rules and regulations that fit all of our schools, regardless of size. Our biggest school, which right now is East Kentwood, of right around 3,000 kids, all the way down to our smallest schools, which right now are somewhere around 25 students. So to find a one-size solution that works everywhere, that's really the challenge. But we always emphasize, don't put all your eggs in that one sport basket. We found that it's really better for kids' mental health, that even if you have your primary sport and this is the sport where you love and it's your passion, playing that second sport, I think just mentally gives you a break. I have one of my kids, she loves basketball and basketball is what she does. But I think if you would ask her, what did you have the most fun with this year? Well, it was actually running track this spring because I got to hang out with my friends, and at least for 2 months, it was a little bit different than that grind of the gym day after day after day. So there's a balance there, but getting kids to let their bodies rest, or at least let their bodies do some different kinds of activity, I think is really best for the whole welfare of those students.
Absolutely. I was glad to see that the number was holding steady because I kind of was naturally thinking with the rise of travel and AAU, like, oh, is that number going to decrease because so many kids from such an early age are putting all their eggs in one basket? And so that's what I was kind of concerned with. And so I'm glad to see at least it's been holding strong.
And if I can just add one more thing, and this will probably sound really, really negative, but it's not even kids putting all their eggs in one basket. I think there's a lot of bad advice that is being given out there by the non-school community. And I think the reason their advice maybe tilts in one way is youth sports has become big business.
Yes.
This has become folks living.
Yeah.
And whether it's the club volleyball person or the club basketball or the club softball or the club baseball, where I think a lot of times they tell parents and kids some stories. Well, if you want to really be able to play at the next level, we need this kind of a commitment. We need this kind of a financial commitment to our club. And as long as you keep doing these things, you're going to be on that path to play collegiately. And I'm not sure that's always the most honest answer. To where what it really becomes is you're now a part of an economic machine, to where for them to keep the doors open for their facilities is they need kids to be playing that single sport during the off season. And as you said, Ryan, we get nervous about specialization, that this is all that kids do. And I think part of that pressure comes from, some people who are making lots of money in the club sports space.
I could keep talking about this forever because I just got done with, I coach my daughter's basketball team. We call it travel. It's not, it's all the same girls from the same grade, from the same school. We're just trying to get them extra touches, but I think it was $30 for a spectator fee for the weekend, which featured 3 games. So, whew. So, but all right. Well, I'm glad to see that. Would you say it's the 44%? Does that seem like is that in the normal range nationally? Do you get any sort of that data to compare to?
We're actually, and I'm pleased by this, is our multi-sport participation has always been a little bit higher than what the National Federation gleans from their survey data around the country. Because I do think in multi-sport participation, I mean, we have some public service announcements that play in a lot of our different media platforms. We're multi-sport participation, avoiding overuse injuries, doing something different for that one season, just to kind of give you not only that physical break, but probably more importantly, just something different mentally. That's always been something that we've pushed. And I think because of that, our numbers are a little bit better than what you find in other places around the country.
Very good. I know the MHSAA Rep Council just started meeting for the year back in December, and I think you're getting ready to meet again this month. We're recording this in early March. For those who are unfamiliar, again, the principals who are listening, can you explain exactly what is the Rep Council? What types of topics are discussed by that group, and how does that kind of drive or shape MHSAA?
So that is our board. The Representative Council is our board of directors. So my board is 19 members. 18 of the 19 are school people, folks directly from our membership. Of the 14 of those members are directly elected by our school. So Ryan, I'm sure, the principals that are seeing this today, you've seen those representative council ballots come through your school, usually during the month of September. Well, we've got, some of those individuals get elected based on their school size. And we've got a couple of state at-large spots, and we have a couple of statewide junior high, middle school. But long story short, 14 of our board members' slots are directly elected by our schools. It's superintendents, it's principals, and it's athletic directors. 4 of those slots are appointed members by our board. So our 14 elected members, what we do on a rotating basis every 4 years is we really look because we want to make sure that our board represents our membership. And a lot of times those 4 appointed spots will go to individuals of color, individuals from maybe parts of our state where we don't, through the election process, maybe get as good a representation as we want. Many female leaders have been one of those appointed spots. We want our board to look like our membership, and with those 4 appointed spots, it gives our board some latitude really to be able to do that. And then our last member, our 19th member, is an appointee from the Michigan Department of Education, which currently right now is Ross Fort. So Ross is kind of our one connection to MDE. But just like a local school board, our board meets. Now, our board meets 3 times a year. We meet in December, March, and May. And just like a local school board, it's their job to approve personnel, which in our case, it's really to approve me as the executive director. I'm very, very lucky to where our board really governs itself well, and they leave the day-to-day operations to our staff. And we have a staff here of 25 individuals. But what the council does is they hire and appoint an executive director. The director then manages the staff on a day-to-day basis. And then really our board is there to approve policy and regulations as well as our budget. So any changes in our handbook, so anything with any of our eligibility rules, those changes have to be approved by our board. And again, being an association of member schools, we are governed by school people. In our council, we're very, very fortunate. Our mix right now amongst those 3 groups of superintendents, principals, and ADs, we've got a really good chemistry. I know a lot of school leaders right now. Boards are interesting groups right now. We become, even local school boards have become so politicized. And I am beyond lucky, Ryan, because almost every one of our board members on the representative council is used to working with a local board of education, where those challenges of board governance and board members staying in a board member lane and not trying to jump out of that board member lane in getting into the day-to-day decision-making and day-to-day operations, of the school district, or in our case, of the association. So I'm beyond lucky to have school people that get boards and really get how boards work best when they're empowered in those areas, which really are policy, regulations, and budget. And that really is how we're organized. One thing I'll just mention quickly as an aside, our 5 board officers do meet once a month, and those meetings are called the executive committee meetings. So if a school has a student who, let's say, is ineligible based on the transfer rule, but their story is unique, their story really has a significant hardship, our executive committee, as I said, meets monthly to where they consider those requests for appeal or requests for waiver. So for example, a student is at Central High School, student, let's say, loses a parent due to an accident, loses a parent. And because of that, I now need to move out of Central High School and I need to move over to Western High School, where I'm now going to live with an aunt and an uncle. Well, that scenario of a move, living with a parent to an aunt and uncle, that doesn't fit one of our exceptions to the transfer rule. However, that hardship and story, absolutely the rule should be waived in this case. So that's really what our executive committee does on a monthly basis. So again, all of those decisions at our board level, we're an association of schools. Those are made by school people. And because of that, we've really got a good dynamic right now within the board.
And I do remember receiving those that rep council information for voting. I remember getting those in the mail. Can you just remind me real quick, are these 1 year or 2 year, multi-year terms, or is this a brand new board every single year?
So really good questions. So all of our board terms are 2-year terms. And so for an example, of the 14 seats that are all elected, 7 of those are up for election.
Half the turnover this way. So
you got it. So even if we get some new folks that get elected to our board, there's always going to be some degree of continuity and consistency, which is really, really beneficial. And then our 4 appointed spots, each one of those also are for 2-year terms, and our appointed members can be appointed for 2-year terms. Because I think it's also important that when you bring folks onto your board, I think 4 years seems about right, because year 1, you've got to kind of get up to speed. You've got to learn a lot of the history, a lot of the background, a lot of the rationale of what you do. And so because of that, I think part of the effectiveness of our board, you look at any successful athletic program, Ryan, and you say, what is the key to success of our most successful programs? Well, what I think it's probably consistency in the coaching staff. It's having that same core group of leaders that get the vision, the mission of the organization. And because of that, our board has also been very, very consistent. I think that consistency has led to really, really good decisions over the years.
Absolutely. All right, final question, Mark, and then we'll get you back to the grind of wrapping up the winter season and prepping for the spring. I know at MASSP, we're very passionate about coaching and mentoring, especially with new administrators, whether it's an assistant principal or a principal. And it sounds like MHSAA finds value in that as well, because you guys have a new program called the Athletic Director Program, I believe, which again is centered around mentoring and coaching. So can you just walk us through kind of how the program got started, how it works, and what you are hoping to accomplish?
So thank you for that opportunity to talk about this. This is probably, in my 20 years of being in the building, it perhaps is the most exciting program that we've put together. It's called the AD Connection Program. And up until about 1.5 years ago, I would sit in this chair and I would get frustrated at the amount of turnover that we were seeing in athletic directors. And I'd sit back and I'd say, well, how can we do a better job of hanging on to folks? And it seems like we're spending all of our time each and every year of just retraining folks over and over and over again. Well, we got our board, the council that we just talked about, to really buy in and step up to the plate to address this issue. And what it was is we have gone out and we have hired on an independent contractor basis 8 of our really blue ribbon type folks who have just retired as high school athletic directors. We were beyond lucky to where the 8 individuals have really been spread geographically around our state, some west, some east, some north. That's been really, really good. And with our 8 mentor leaders, we're giving them a stipend, which covers, their time, their travel. And what we've done, Ryan, is we've given these 8 individuals essentially a caseload of first-year ADs. And so with that caseload, each of our mentors are checking in with them via text or a call on almost a weekly basis. We've got about a monthly Zoom that happens. And then our mentors have also done some site visits to where they've shown up to really help some of our brand new ADs in that first year with event planning, event setup, those kinds of things. We have 750 high schools currently in the membership. And this year we have and again, this fluctuates depending on the day, we've had approximately 120 new ADs. So of our 750, 120 are brand new this year. And I can tell you the response we've gotten from our new folks has been off the charts.
I can imagine.
They feel like they've got that person that they can call or reach out to. It's not someone who's directly involved in their evaluation. So it really feels like that trusted outside sounding board, where a lot of times as that new athletic director, I'll go to my principal or my superintendent, but maybe those conversations sometimes get a little bit awkward because ultimately these are the folks that are evaluating me. Well, is there someone I can just bounce some things off? And our mentor has really been very, very effective. And it's also helped our staff because it's been a staff multiplier to where that outreach and connection to our new people, it's not just the 25 or so folks in our building, but we've now enhanced that by times 8. And it's just been really, really effective. So we committed to this for at least 2 years. So we're right now nearing the end of year 1. I can say with great certainty that this will become probably a permanent program. And then a key part of this is we are going to survey and we want to know next fall, where are these 120? Granted, we'd love to see more stability because I think if you give somebody a positive first year experience in the role as the AD, the odds that they're going to stay in that position increase. So we're going to chart to see, well, are they staying at their same school? And I also think this has been a successful program if a first year AD maybe at a smaller school that come next fall as they get another opportunity, but maybe at a little bit bigger school. So it's a way that they're kind of moving up the chain. But we want to kind of keep tabs on these 120. And then as we do this for a handful of years, I think we'll really get an idea about how successful this really is of getting that new person. Because, Ryan, we've talked in general about mentoring forever. And it's been the same frustration our state ADs group has had, the MIAAA, where we'll have kind of this volunteer mentor program and you'll be assigned a mentor. And there just wasn't much structure. There wasn't much, I don't know if accountability is the right word, but because it was kind of volunteer and just kind of do what you can do, it really wasn't very accountable. Well, now we've got 8 professionals where we're paying them. Again, they're not getting rich by any means, but the dollars are making their time worth it here to give back. And in a lot of cases, these 8 retirees weren't completely ready to completely go off into the sunset as they were looking to do something on kind of a part-time basis. So it's really been a win-win-win all the way around the board. And like I said, at the end of the day, we're hoping to see more folks stay in the profession. We're hoping to get our brand new people kind of up to speed faster than what we would have kind of back in those old informal mentoring days. And this has been a program that my colleagues from around the country have asked me to talk about and to present to them because everybody's dealing with this. And Ryan, I'm sure in your membership, turnover that you're seeing in principals,
absolutely,
something. And instead of just sitting in the chair and speculating or even complaining about it, by goodness, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's invest in a real mentoring program where there is structure and accountability. And here after our first 8 months or so, the early results have been fantastic. So stay tuned for further updates.
I love the idea of that program. Absolutely. So quick follow-up for you. Are all 120 of the new people, are they like automatically enrolled, or is it less than that and they have to opt in? Like, how does that kind of work?
All 120. So we've even had a handful of changes during the school year, and we hear that there's been an AD change, and the brand new AD at Northern High School is in place. Brad Bush of our staff, Brad is kind of the quarterback or the point guard for this program. When we hear there's a brand new AD at the middle of November that got hired at Northern High School, first thing, Brad gets on the phone, reaches out and says, congratulations on your new position. We understand you're now the new AD at Northern High School. We've assigned you a mentor. Here's who this is. And they arrange a first conversation or meeting between the two of them. So no, all of our new people are automatically in the program. We've probably had 5% of the new ADs who maybe haven't been as engaged as we would have hoped. But instead of focusing on the small handful, let's focus on the 95% who we hear over and over again that, my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And what we're hearing most consistently is how good it is to have that outside sounding board of somebody outside of my district. And even a lot of times, at least in athletics, if it's not somebody within my district, my traditional sounding board has been that AD at my fellow school within my league or conference. Well, yep. Even this is a little bit different perspective. It's somebody without, having kind of a horse in the race.
Yep.
So, that eligibility question, or I'm struggling right now with my basketball coach. And I can reach out to that mentor and say, hey, during your career, any advice for me here in managing or the evaluation? And I just think we're getting some really authentic and meaningful feedback to those new people, where I think in the old days, they kind of felt like they were all alone on an island, other than, the help they were getting within their district, or even maybe that veteran AD at my fellow league school just down the road.
Absolutely. And, from my experience, I was an assistant principal, and I worked with an athletic director who had been around for a few years and had experience. But then when I got moved to the big chair and became the lead principal, we also had a new athletic director at that time that got hired. And I could say from my own perspective, I would have loved to have this opportunity, because while I'm trying to learn the ropes of my own job, I've got to try and lead this other person. And it's a challenge, so to have that option, like you said, where they can have a person that they can trust into, but you have trust with, but also has that experience to be able to help guide them, because not every principal is going to be equipped to assist that, that athletic director. So excited for that program, excited to watch that continue on, hopefully. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate all your time, Mark, that you've spent with us on the podcast all year long. And I hope we can hopefully continue this going on to the next school year, and that our listeners, especially the principals, are finding some valuable insight. I'm learning stuff that just having you explain the rationale behind how certain things work. It's been fun for me to learn as well. So I really appreciate your time all year.
Can't thank you enough, Ryan. This has been a wonderful partnership. And again, we can't do the work that we do without supportive and engaged principals. And again, all the members of MASSP, we're incredibly grateful for all that you do, and appreciate the time once again today.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Ryan.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening to the MASSP podcast. Remember, you can listen to this podcast and others anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Just search for MASSP or hit the subscribe button right now.